Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the Jetset Dreaming podcast. My name is Ryan. I will be your guide, your captain, your co-pilot, whatever you want to think of me as today. Uh, as we travel the worlds of travel, music, sports, and aviation, as you know from our previous episode, that is what we are doing. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us. I'm really happy you decided to join us on this little adventure that we're having. Today, we're going to kind of shift our focus. We're not really going to do travel, music, or sports. We might dive into a little bit of music, but today we're just going to stick in the realm of aviation. Um, so today we're going to be shifting our gears and we're going to be focusing on the rigors of flight training. Um, as a former private student, former instrument student, current commercial student, I know all too well about how tough flight training can be. And it is honestly one of the toughest, but also most rewarding journeys anyone can undertake. But it's not a walk in the park. Like if you start doing flight training, you think, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm going to have all my ratings done here in like a year or two. You might if you go to somewhere like ATP and they're putting you on for 3 lessons a day or something like that, but that's just not fun. Flying is about it's you're not having fun in flying if you're doing that. It's the whole point of flying is to have fun. I'm not gonna lie. But to get to the point to where you see captains of Delta, even me, while I'm still working on my commercial rating, it takes a lot of grit, determination, and a true love to make it through the process of flight training. So whether you've like ever dreamed of sitting in a cockpit or just curious about like the life of, I guess we'll say student pilot or pilot in general, or you just want to understand what it takes to get, I guess we could say, the wings. Um, this episode is basically for you guys. So buckle up. We're gonna dive into joys, challenges, and honestly the realities of flight training. From my perspective, obviously, and I just want you guys to know, don't take some stuff that I say with a grain of salt because, like I said, I'm not a flight instructor. I'm currently only a commercial student. Um, but from my perspective, I've done both Part 141 and Part 61 training, so I think I have a pretty good grasp on what it's like to be, to go through flight training so far. Um, but let's start off with like getting started in flight training. Um, so for many of us, including me, the dream of becoming a pilot started when I was a young lad, a wee child. It 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 really starts just looking up at the sky, seeing those amazing machines just flying through the sky somehow. Like, how does that happen? How do those things work? Like, I want to do that. I want to fly. Um, but when it comes to formal training, such as where I'm at right now in flight training, there's a lot to navigate. Heh, pun intended, right? No? All right, fine. I'll just keep moving. So really the first thing is before you even like think about choosing a school, do a discovery flight with your nearest flight school. See what if you truly like um flying. I always recommend doing a discovery flight. I will always recommend it. It truly helped me solidify that this is what I want to do when I did my discovery flight at Twin Oaks Air Park in Hillsboro, Oregon. That was a lot of fun. From that moment on, I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do with my life. So do a discovery flight. If you know someone who's a pilot, ask them to take you up. If you don't, go to your local flight school and sign up to do a discovery flight. They'll have an instructor do one with you. It's a lot of fun. I highly suggest it. Next, after the discovery flight, and you figure out, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. Then you gotta figure out where do you want to do your training. Um, if you live in bigger cities, there's probably a lot more options than if you live in like where I'm at in Prescott, Arizona, where you have Lenore, North Aviation, and Embry-Riddle. Um, so you got to decide which one is your best fit. Go visit those schools. Um, Embry-Riddle is obviously for you college students. That's a college. That's where I started off in my flight training. I regret not coming in with my private. If you are going to do flight training through a college, I highly suggest going in with your private. It'll make the process a lot easier, a lot smoother, because I'd say 90 to 99% of those schools do 141 training. I just don't think 141 is all that conducive to learning to in private pilot. That's just me. That's what that's just my opinion going through it. I just don't think it was really fully conducive to really grasping how to be a private pilot. That's my opinion. Um, so in choosing a flight school, do you go to a local club or a large academy or even like Embry-Riddle College Aviation Program? Each path really has its pros and cons, whether it's cost, schedule, your career goals, all that comes into play with that. Riddle is nice because on the career side of things, they have connections with like every major airline in the US and some that are overseas as well. Um, Scheduling wise, since it's at college, you have to take classes as well for your degree. And Riddle has these things called flight blocks, which where you block out specific hours of your day to where it's just dedicated to flying and doing that. The hard part about it is that when schedules come into play with scheduling classes, some of those classes will fall right in your flight block. And you can't schedule that class because your flight block is only dedicated to flight training. So you might fall behind on classes because you can't get that class done that semester. So you have to wait until the next semester. Or you can see if you can change your flight block, though it's very rare that that's going to happen. But that's one of the downsides of Riddle, in my opinion, is the flight block thing. Whereas if you go to an external flight school, such as North Air, Illinois, you can schedule yourself, essentially. Or you can create, at North Air, what we do, that's where I fly. We let you allow, like, you decide when you want to fly. You schedule those blocks of time. You give us, all right, here's this times when I'm available. We'll get you on the schedule during that time. And if you're scheduled outside of your availability, then that's on us. Or if you go to Illinois, you can just schedule whenever you want with your instructor and go fly. That's why I like those external flight schools. So that's the first step. Then there's the process of earning your private, which is the first license that you will test to get, essentially. Yes, there's a student pilot's license that lets you solo, not carry passengers. You just have to fill out an application online for flight instructor. So let me paint the picture for you. You're sitting in a small Cessna 172. Your hands on the yoke. You're shaking a little bit because you're nervous. It's my first time ever flying. The instructor's like, you know what? You're doing the takeoff. I'm gonna walk you through it, but you're doing it. You're gonna do this on your Discovery flight too. So if you do a Discovery flight, this won't be new to you. You'll be like, oh, I've experienced this before. But if it is your first time, you'll be like, oh no, what is going to happen? What if I touch the wrong thing? Whatever. But your instructor's there with you. They're walking you through the process. All right, I'll handle the rudders. Let me handle the rudders, the things at your feet. You just handle the yoke and the power. This whole process is so intimidating. But it's also so captivating and thrilling. Like, I'm taking off in a plane. Yes, with the help of my instructor, but I'm the one who's manipulating the controls. It's insane. Then there's the ground knowledge aspect of flying. I'll get in more into flight here soon. But the ground knowledge is a big part of it. Private is not just about learning how to fly. You got to learn about weather patterns, navigation, airspace, regulations, and obviously how to be a safe pilot. So the classroom is just as important. You got to learn how to read frontal patterns. What does a cold front do versus what a warm front does? What is a squall line? What do these isobars mean? What's the Coriolis force? Like, all this sort of stuff you got to memorize because this is going to come into play later on down in your check ride, which is where a designated pilot examiner, we call them DPEs, will test your knowledge and see, are you ready to be a certified private pilot in the eyes of the FAA? It's a long process. Some people get it done in a matter of months. Some people take a year or two. But let me tell you, it is worth it in the end. So going back to the flight training portion, now that that's the classroom section, classroom is, I highly recommend you guys study. Highly. It is so important. If you don't study, you're not going to succeed. Now, back to the flying portion. Honestly, the most fun part of flight training, in my opinion, is flying. Obviously, because you got to be flying through the air at 120 knots, doing fun things like stalls, steep turns on a point, traffic patterns. It's so much fun. Um, like that, when it really starts to set in that you are doing this, is your first solo. I did my first solo at about 36 hours. Riddle things. Pretty typical at that school. But it didn't really set in until we finished doing our practice laps with my instructor. We park at the riddle ramp, and he gets out and it's like, "All right, have fun, don't die." I'm like, "Holy cow, I'm really about to do this. Like, I'm really about to fly a plane by myself." I'm like, "All right." I was quite literally like, my heart was racing. If I didn't have an Apple Watch at the time, so I didn't know what my heartbeat was, but I'm telling you, it was up there. It was definitely up there. Um, I'm like, "Holy cow! All right, here we go." Called up ground. Told him I think I was riddle 39 or 36, one of those two. And I'm like, ground riddle, we'll say it was 36. 36 Sierra, student solo. Request the pattern, close traffic. He's like, all right, whatever, taxi the runway. Did my run up, pulled up to the hold short line. I'm like, holy cow. It's happening. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Luckily nothing did. So I called up tower, holding short, number 1, ready to go. Told me, fly straight out, clear for takeoff. And I'm like, all right, here goes nothing. And let me tell you, without the instructor in there, if it's just you kind of take off like a rocket. It's kind of insane. The rate of climb you have is quite amazing. With just one person in Cessna 172. I did my first landing. So at Prescott, you do full stop taxi backs, depending on where you fly. At Riddle, you do full stop taxi backs. I completely forgot that I was supposed to do full stop taxi backs on my solo. So my first landing, I did the ultimate whatever bad thing at Riddle, and I did a touch and go. Oh no. And Tower's like, Riddle 36. Did you mean to do a touch and go? Did you go around? I'm like, oh shoot. I did not mean to do that. They're like, I'm like, oh, sorry about that. No, yeah, that's on me. My bad. Luckily at Prescott we have really nice controllers. Well, most of them are nice. We have Sab Panda. If any of you ever heard of him, he's tends to get on people pretty quickly, but it's understandable. It's a stressful job. But luckily I had one of the cool guys. And he's like, yeah, all good. Just left traffic whenever you're ready, and I'll call your base. I'm like, all right. And then for the next 3 landings, I remember to do full stop taxi backs. And that's how my first solo went. And let me tell you, after I did that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not giving this up. This is the best thing I have ever done. Flying is insanely fun. So after your first solo, you just start working. Yeah. Then comes your cross countries, solo cross countries. And you just work on cleaning up your maneuvers, cleaning up your ground knowledge. Then comes the check ride, which, like I said earlier, is with the designated pilot examiner, a DPE. That's where they test your knowledge and your flight skills to see if you are able to be a pilot in the eyes of the FAA. And at this point, when I got to this point, I was at North Air. I moved over to North Air. And it was, honestly, for all you student pilots out there who are stressing about your check ride, it's not as hard as people say it is. If you know your stuff, if you score high on your written test, I'll get into written tests a little bit further down the road and here pretty soon. If you score high on your written test, it'll be one of the easiest things that you ever have done. Just remember one thing. A check ride, especially the ground portion, you're just having a conversation with this DPE. You're just having a conversation. And yes, he's assessing your knowledge, but it's essentially just you and him talking about flying. It's like you and your dad talking about what you did in your lesson today. Or you talking to your friends about how they're doing in the flight training, and they're just seeing what you know. It's just you having a conversation. Like, I think for a good 30 minutes out of the ground test, the oral test, we talked about history of Prescott, like how the movies that were shot here. Like it was one of the most low key, relaxed environments I've ever been in flight training. So just remember that you're just having a conversation. Then when the flight comes, it's essentially just you on your solo again. Just pretend the DPE is not there. Just do everything like you know how to do to your best of your ability. They're going to test you on stalls, steep turns, probably turns around a point, emergency procedures, um, cross country flight planning, all that sort of stuff. They're going to test you on that. They're going to see if you know what to do, but they're not there. You're logging PIC time at this point. You're getting to log all this stuff. You're the pilot in command. So that's that's yes, the check ride's hard, but it is worth it in the end. And despite all the challenges of flight training, if you ask anyone, they'll say, me included, they'll say, yes, it is worth it. It is definitely worth it. There's nothing like the feeling of taking off, watching the ground shrink below you, and realizing you're in control of a machine that essentially defies gravity. It's insane. The milestones aren't forgettable. Getting each rating, doing your first solo, the first time you nail a perfect landing, and yes, passing your private pilot check ride, and eventually earning your instrument rating like I did, which lets you fly in less than perfect weather. Don't fly in storms, kids. Don't fly into no icing. That's bad. And then flight training is a community effort. Like the amount of people I've met who have experience, more experience than me, less experience than me, who have become my friends. It's crazy. You'll bond with instructors, students, and a ton of other people. Like I know this one guy who's like a 70-something-year-old backcountry pilot, like who just flies into fields and with his carbon cub and camps out. I know guys who fly Part 135. I know guys who fly for the airlines. All these guys share your passion and they'll tell you stories, so you never run out of like tales to tell, stories to tell. I'm gonna give you guys some advice though, real quick. In terms of flight training, do your research, especially when you're trying to find a flight school. Look at reviews. Reviews do play a pretty big role in how well flight schools perform. Yes, there are some people who just have a grudge against a flight school because they didn't pass something or whatever, who will leave a bad review. But just look at the reviews. That'll help a lot. Um, Visit the school, obviously. Go visit the school, ask questions, ask to take a tour, ask to see their planes. And if they'll let you, ask to see their maintenance operations too, because that maintenance is obviously a big part of the safety of flying. Um, and also make sure you feel comfortable. Hopefully you will with the school that you choose. Definitely make sure you feel comfortable there. That's why I chose Norther. I was like, I know I have a friend who already goes here, so at least I'll have him to talk to. And then eventually, my first instructor became a pretty good friend too, in my opinion. Like, he's a great guy. He's, I think, GoJet or Commute Air now, but he helped a lot in making him a lot more comfortable with me. Then I got a job at my flight school as a dispatcher, so that also happened. That helped a lot more too. But make sure you feel comfortable with the instructors, the people there, the facilities especially. Make sure you feel comfortable with the planes that you're going to be flying. That's big. Then second thing, number 2, be patient. Flight training isn't a race. It's not supposed to go by quickly. It can for some, it won't for others. Progress at your own pace. Don't go too quickly. If you feel like you're being rushed, tell your flight instructor, like, hey, I feel like I'm going way too quick and I don't know everything that I should at this point. Go at your own pace and don't rush through the fundamentals. It's imperative that you go as slow as you want or also as quick as you want, as you feel comfortable. Because feeling uncomfortable in flight training isn't good. You're not going to succeed if you feel uncomfortable. Number 3, budget. Flight training is expensive, dude. Let me tell you, flight training is expensive, but if you plan carefully, you save money away from each paycheck, like this is going to flight training, it's manageable. But definitely look into scholarships. There are a ton of scholarships out there. Look at AOPA, EAA, or just look up flight training scholarships on Google. And also loans. Yes, loans. Oh no, you got to pay those back, which sucks, but it's money that'll help you get towards your goal of being a pilot. That's the third thing. Budget, save money. 4, embrace the challenges that come with flight training. Think of every mistake as a stepping stone to make you a better pilot. I know I've made a ton of mistakes. I've done a ton of things wrong in my career as a pilot, but I think that makes me a better pilot because I'm like, oh, I did this wrong, so I'll just do this differently and make sure I do it right. Whether it's making sure you go through checklists before takeoff, before landing, because I know I forgot to do that, but make sure you do it. Make sure you turn the autopilot off. Do all this stuff. Just embrace them. Embrace the challenges of flight training because it truly will make you a better pilot. And then finally, keep your passion alive. Remember why you decided to do this. Remember you as a little kid looking up at those planes thinking, I want to do that one day. Whether it's your love of flying or just you want to see the world, let that passion drive you. Um, it's truly a special thing that we get to do. Not everyone gets to fly planes. I'm sure a lot of people would love to. Wish they could. I know my dad's one of them, so he's living vicariously through me. Um, just embrace that passion. Don't give up. That's the sixth thing on my list. Don't give up. I know I've thought about giving up at some points, but if you don't give up and you keep pushing through, if you keep remembering why you started doing this, you will be one of the most successful people you have ever met in flight training. Because you will get to that point where you're like, I get to do this for a living, if that's what you want to do, or I get to go travel around the US, just going to different airports, seeing different people, seeing the sights. If you'd never give up, you will have some of the most fun in your life. I guarantee it. Taking your friends up on flights because they don't want to learn to fly. I got a couple of friends like that. Taking your family up, taking your dad up for the first time, taking your mom up for the first time. It is some of the most special moments that a lot of people don't really get to feel because they're not pilots. They don't get to see the joy on their parents' faces when they're taking off for the first time with their son or daughter at the controls. It is truly a special thing that we get to do. So I truly will say this. Never give up. Everyone you meet believes in you, knows you can do it. If you have people who are saying, yeah, you'll never do that, prove them wrong. Prove them wrong because flying a plane is, I'm going to say it is the best thing I've ever done. It is the best thing I've ever done. And I've been to Disneyland. Flying a plane is the best thing I've ever done. It's better than Disneyland. It's better than Universal Studios. It's better than going on a road trip with your family. That should be a given. But being able to be at the controls of this beautiful machine is second to none, in my opinion. I love it. I would never give it up for the world. And like I said, I thought about quitting. I did. But then I just sat and thought, I'm a Christian, so I prayed. And I realized I don't know what I would do if I wasn't going through with this. Like, I don't know how I would feel. I don't know how my parents would feel if they helped me put all this money into it. And I will never regret not giving up. Not giving up was the best decision of my life. So, I believe in you guys too, if this is the path that you want to go on. I believe that you guys can succeed in becoming an aviator. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. It's a shorter episode, not as long as last week's episode. It's a shorter one, yeah. But that wraps up today's episode of Jetset Dreaming. Excuse me. And just remember, flight training is a journey. It's a long one, but it's one like no other. And I really hope today's episode empowers you and gives you a little glimpse into what it's like to become a pilot. I kind of just talked on the private pilot side. It wasn't very long. I'll tell you what. This is part one of a two-parter of the glimpse into becoming a pilot because I just touched on some of the private pilot side. So in the next episode, I'll touch on like instrument side and working through commercial and all that. So if you're a pilot or a student pilot, I'd love to hear your training stories. Drop a comment. Your stories could inspire a future episode. Who knows? I know that I got some stories that I'll tell on future episodes. I got some fun ones. But I just want to thank you guys for continuing to join me on this adventure. Don't forget to hit that follow button on Spotify. Leave a comment, with any future episode ideas that you guys want to hear or see. And I really hope you're enjoying the podcast. I know I'm enjoying making them. As always, keep dreaming, keep exploring, keep jet setting. I'll see you guys next time, and clear skies and tailwinds to all you guys out there.